Build your next startup without writing code. Website. At Webflow Automation. At Zapier Copywriting. At Copy_I Community. At Circle App Platform Builder. At Bubble Machine Learning. At Lobe_I Membership. At MemberStack Media Generation. At Banner Bear HQ Start Building. Is amazing too. Beta for now though. Few alternatives. Website. At SOFTR_EO Automation. At Integramat Community. At Outseta Machine Learning. At Obviously I. Things to avoid as your startup scales. Meetings about meetings. Hiring is the answer to every problem. Need for wide consensus on decision. Risk aversion. Value protection no matter company size. Keep a mindset that 1. It's always early days and 2. Empower individuals. Death by meetings. Meetings kill big companies. They can kill startups too. Keeping lean and simple. Don't overhire nor build unnecessary hierarchy. It's always early days. Totally agree that should be the mindset. Totally agree. Also the dreaded, recurring, meetings that are going to happen whether they need to or not. Consistency to these meetings are great if you can set the right level of engagement and action meeting to meeting. But also if nothing to discuss then finish up. Set action and amp. Expectation to get results. Make sure people have the ability to make a decision. Yup. If meetings are really needed, then they should at least have a clear agenda and end with action items. An interesting look at how a really good programmer thinks about work. What they want most is to ship cool stuff and to work with good people. They'll join you if you offer both. The interesting part is that a senior engineer that helped shape and ship whole apps had trouble getting through the initial screening process. In this sense, most models of worker-employer relationships are wrong. Meaning, as compensation is important as remunerative compensation. The downside of using your own SaaS is it's buggy as hell lol. Uber is a really good tell of what may end up happening for a lot of late-stage, 20 to 21 venture markups *, August 2016, $68 billion, in private markets, January 2021, $69 billion, in public markets, assuming you survive. Yikes. If the value is unmoved or lower after 5 years or an order of magnitude push in revenues, it just proves how much of the meat is eaten up by VCS before the main course makes it to the public markets. Uber had nearly global ubiquity and potential for insane unit econs, self-driving, and found an appropriate new leader. Many late-stage op and capital-intensive cos don't have the same level of scale, market leadership, or management skill and amp, are more cyclical. Uber is a best case for many. We spent 30+ hours studying the rise and fall of Juicero, the once beloved startup known for making squeezable juice packets and selling a $700 juice squeezer designed after a MacBook. Here are our top takeaways. 1. Always launch something with a variety of colors. Features are not as useful as giving customers enough options to make them feel smart and important. Juicero knew how to make each of their customers feel unique and special with the color of juice that best represented them. 2. When in doubt, over-engineer. Juicero is a masterclass on over-engineering something so simple that it could be done by squeezing with your hands. Beautiful? Yes. Useful? No. 3. Increase your margins by stuffing basic items inside high-end packaging. This is what was inside a $7 juice packet. Carrots lol. 4. Always go for an organic look. When you label something as organic, people will automatically assume it's healthy and thus worth it and then spend way too much money on your product. Like a $7 juice packet. 5. Even if your shipments are delayed, buy ads. Look, you may not be shipping units on time and running into serious delays, but at least you can pay for some billboards and get people excited about your $700 juice squeezer. Ads are always a good idea. 1. People on Twitter saying, the market has corrected. Your startup valuations are going way down. Be scared, founders. But 2. We still have the greatest amount of VC dry powder in history in funds that must be deployed or GPs don't get paid. What am I missing? I do get that venture is not uniform. Pre-IPO rounds just took a big hit, of course. But the early stage stuff taking valuation haircuts in 2022? I don't get it. I had a similar thought in March 2020 right before we headed into shelter in place and tweeted about it. The ensuing bull run was a function of many VC funds buying the dip and then accelerated by the macro impact from lower rates plus Fed activity. There is an overreaction impact on startup valuations. Valuations are a function of supply plus demand, and there is more demand than ever given how consensus, de-risked VC-backed business models are. Valuations will compress versus 2021, but we aren't heading into 2018 territory. Not an exact rule, but anything valued above $1 billion, above 100x rev, can be justified emo if co-growing 10 to 50 by per year, are generally pre-revenue is likely worth 20 to 50% less than day it was priced. Combination of the above even more so. As long as LP capital continues pouring in, this will just make investing in high-quality startups even more competitive, pushing up multiples, which then brings up multiples on other companies. Man shrugging, medium light skin tone. The best companies will be fine. If comp multiples are cut in half from the pricing date a year ago but the county has grown 5x, still technically worth 2.5x more now. VCs will certainly use plummeting public comps to push for lower valuations. If things get really bad, LPs are going to be forced to rebalance and will guide their GPs not to make capital calls, i.e., slow down on doing new deals for a while until things firm up. Every VC who is ever told, slow down, by an LP, lol, LMAO. I haven't experienced it on the VC side, but I saw it firsthand in PE in 2009. The balance of power can shift quickly. When a large and prominent institutional LP says, "Don't make me say no," to funding a capital call, GPs listen. It's a nuclear scenario, but it has happened. Deployment cycles used to be 5 years. Then 3. Now 2, and in some cases 1. Lots of variables, but agree with your overall point that there is no reason to be bearish on startups. Successful ones create exponentially more value than a market dip, spike. A couple of other factors to take into consideration. 1 for and 1 against your point. 1. It's never been cheaper to launch a revenue-generating product. 2. More new companies are being formed than ever before. 1.5-2x pre-pandemic. You're assuming no LP scales back, doesn't wire, no reason to assume otherwise yet, but we might get there. Highly unlikely. The world is not melting down. Agree. In hindsight, having one of my Fund 1 LPs default was a blessing. It allowed me to sell the position at cost, it was marked at 1.8x at the time, and bring in a big institution via a stapled secondary. My biggest advice for startup employees: be impact-driven. Resourcing is scarce. You always need to evaluate whether you're working on the highest ROI thing you could be doing to push the company forward. After being in the startup scene for 4 years, I wanted to share my personal observations, experiences on why I think the number of female founders getting funded is so low. It's still 2%, it didn't change. Again, this is based off of what I've seen and what has happened to us. 1. 9/10 investors I've talked to are male. Most female founders are tackling problems that are predominantly affecting women, BC duh. Who else is gonna do it? And obviously most male investors won't necessarily understand the problem, and why they are trying to solve it. 2. A lot of female VCs and investors that I researched to be the ones who champion for female founders and that they care about closing the funding gap, are the ones who actually automatically rejected us. They didn't bother to give us a chance for an initial call, meeting. 2. Cont. One popular female VC refused to take a meeting with us even after 3 warm intros from her friend, fellow investor and portfolio founder. We tried to meet with her because her background would have been perfect for our business. But still, nada. 3. I've noticed a lot of female founders, like myself, try to reach out to female investors in hopes that they would understand us more. Alas, sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes, they were our worst critics and they find all the ways that your startup won't work. 3. Cont. One time, one female VC emailed me back a whole essay, basically comparing our startup to her previously failed startup, then saying ours won't succeed because hers didn't. Our startups are vastly different and they even have a different market, business model, product. 4. Female founders who've made it usually don't pay it forward. Instead of using female-founded products, platforms, they use a competitor's instead, made by male founders. Oh, and they typically don't do warm intros nor do they get them the dollar note they need to build their companies. 5. I've also noticed that here's a very toxic mentality within female founders in AMP. VCs where they think the pie is not meant to be shared. That because they worked so hard to climb the ladder and they didn't receive help themselves, that others need to work just as hard as they did. 5. Cont. Passing on generational trauma is never okay. Yes, you worked hard, and you were successful, but doesn't it suck? To go through all that alone? Why do you feel like others need to experience the same? That doesn't erase what happened to you, it only perpetuates it. 5. Cont. The female tech scene is extremely toxic and the ones who've made it at the top think that there's only one seat and it's just for them. They think there's no more space to highlight other women who have the potential to be successful like them. It is honestly very sad. I hope that I can help shine a light on this topic based on my own personal experiences. Not only do I hope to succeed with my own startup, but I also hope that I can help change things for the better for other and future female founders to come. Woman tipping hand light skin tone. Negotiating a venture capital investment in your startup? Here is a very useful chart generated from a survey of VCs. It tells you the most, and least, negotiable deal terms for both software, tech, and biomedical funds. There are always liquidation preferences. If you don't understand these VC terms, it is worth learning them. They are important for your startup, but also give you insights into how VCs think. I suggest at B. Feld and Mendelssohn's book Venture Deals, plus this down finger site is also a great starting point. Startups. You don't need crazy performance out the gate. Just get out the gate. The week-over-week improvement is the story you'll sell. Pre-revenue. Pre-product founding team on paper plan. VCs fighting to get into the company, $20 million VALN early revenue. Early product founding team on realistic plan. VCs say it's too early and will need to see traction. Dreams sell better narratives than reality. The typical pattern of growth in startups seems to follow. 1. Finding initial customers equals in GT, through outbound hustle. 2. Scaling the acquisition equals in GT, through inbound marketing pipelines. 3. Cementing their position equals in GT, through effective branding. Web 2 is dominated by incumbents who spend vast sums of money extracting data and money from the networks they control. There is a serious risk the internet turns out like, say, broadcast TV with a few dominant corporate-owned services, and no room for startups and new ideas. CEOs are great to relieve founders of obligations. But founders really should be running companies. Especially in the early stages. Not financial advice to founders, just a founder's opinion who has hired CEOs in the past. In tech, non-founder CEOs work out like 1% of the time. As a founder, why would you put the long-term success of your company at that kind of risk? Especially when you have product market fit. Work on leveling yourself up first instead of considering a CEO as the alternative. Top 3 most annoying things VCs FWD to founders. 1. I saw this TechCrunch article apt a competitor announcement. What's your take? 2. Here's a market map graphic that I'm concerned you're not listed on. 3. Here's my nephew's resume for an informational interview. Thanks. Stripe and Y Combinator, the mob bosses of Silicon Valley, a thread.